The Paradox of Choice. Why More is Less. Barry Schwartz. How the culture of abundance robs us of satisfaction. Praise for the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice has a simple yet profoundly life altering message for all Americans. Schwartz 11 practical simple steps to becoming less choosy will change much in your daily life. Buy this book now. Philip Zimbardo. In this revolutionary and beautifully reasoned book, Barry Schwartz shows that there is vastly too much choice in the modern world. This promiscuous amount of choice renders the consumer helpless and dissatisfied. The Paradox of Choice is a must read for every thoughtful person. Martin Seligman. Today's world offers us more choices, but ironically, less satisfaction. This provocative and riveting book shows us steps we can take toward a more rewarding life. David Myers. This book is valuable in two ways. It argues persuasively that most of us would often be better off with fewer options and that many of us try too hard to make the best choices. While making its case, the book also provides an engaging introduction to current psychological research on choice and on well being. Daniel Kahneman. Brilliant! The case Schwartz makes for a correlation between our emotional state and what he calls the tyranny of choice is compelling. The implications disturbing. An insightful book. Christian Science Monitor. Schwartz lays out a convincing argument. He is a crisp, engaging writer with an excellent sense of pace. Austin American Statesman. Schwartz chronicles well how our choices have expanded, how our demands for perfection have increased, and how we suffer as a result from regret, missed opportunities, and feelings of inadequacy. Schwartz offers helpful suggestions of how we can manage our world of overwhelming choices. St. Petersburg's Times. The Paradox of Choice is genuine and useful. The book is well reasoned and solidly researched. New York Observer. Schwartz has clearly put his finger on a national mood, the Christian century, an insightful study that winningly argues its subtitle, Philadelphia Inquirer. Schwartz has plenty of insightful things to say about the perils of everyday life. Book list. The Paradox of Choice is this year's must-read book, Guardian. With its cleverly analysis, buttressed by sage New Yorker cartoons, The Paradox of Choice is persuasive. Business Week. Acknowledgements. The ideas in this book began to develop when I was invited by Marty Seligman to contribute an article on self-determination to a special issue of the journal American Psychologist. It seemed obvious and undeniable that people prized and valued the opportunity to be self-determining. Yet, all was not right with freedom, autonomy, and self-determination. They did not seem to be unalloyed blessings. This book is my effort to explore and explain this darker side of freedom. My thinking about this topic was clarified and advanced a great deal by an empirical research project supported in part by fans from the Positive Psychology Network and Swarthmore College. I conducted in collaboration with colleagues Andrew Ward John Montesrosso, Darren Lehman, Sonja Liabomirsky, and Catherine White. I am deeply grateful for these colleagues, especially the ward, whose office is next door to mine and who thus must put up with almost daily discussions, for the role they played in the research and for the many illuminating conversations we had in the course of completing the project. Their insights are reflected throughout the book. I have also learned much from collaborators on related empirical projects that are still underway. Dave Cohen, Jen Gilham, Jamin Halberstadt, Tim Kassar, Mary Frances Luce, and Ken Sheldon. In the course of presenting some of my ideas at meetings and conferences, I have also learned much from conversations with many, especially John Haidt, Dacha Keltner, Jonathan Schooler, and Susan Sugarman. On the book itself, Judy Duggan and Beth Gross read early drafts that were much longer and much less fun to read than this one. Thanks to them, the rest of the world's burden is eased. Rebecca Schwartz, Alison Dworkin, and Ted Dworkin forced me to confront the fact that many of the issues I write about look different to my children's generation than they do to mine. Though they may not agree with all of the final product, Becca, Ellie, and Ted helped to shape it by changing my thinking and writing about several things. My editor and EcoPress, Julia Srebinsky, helped show me how to tame the manuscript. She also identified parts of the exposition that weren't as clear as I thought they were. And Bill Patrick did an extraordinary job of helping me improve both the organization of the book and the writing. There would have never been a book without the help of my agent, Tina Bennett. Aside from doing beautifully the kinds of business-like things that agents do, Tina worked with me through several drafts of a proposal, in the course of which she helped shape the book into its final form. I am extraordinarily fortunate to have an agent who is at the same time a smart, wise, and sympathetic editor. Only Tina got to see the worst of my ideas. Finally, I owe my special thanks to my best editor and best friend, Myrna Schwartz. Her convictions about the value and importance of the ideas in this book have been unflagging. By being simultaneously my most sympathetic and most demanding reader, Myrna has read insightfully through several drafts of the book, each time pointing out to me serious problems that needed to be fixed, but doing so with such love and enthusiasm that I was able to drag myself back to the keyboard to make another stab. Myrna has played this role on each of my major projects, and what I have learned over more than 3 decades is that she's almost always right. Sometimes satisficers like me get lucky. Prologue. The Paradox of Choice, a Roadmap. About 6 years ago, I went to the Gap to buy a pair of jeans. I tend to wear my jeans until they've fallen apart, so it had been quite a while since my last purchase. A nice young salesperson walked up to me and asked if she could help. I want a pair of jeans 3228, I said. Do you want them slim fit, easy fit, relaxed fit, baggy, or extra baggy? She replied. Do you want them stone washed, acid washed, or distressed? Do you want them button fly or zipper fly? Do you want them faded or regular? I was stunned. A moment or two later, I sputtered out something like, I just want regular jeans, the kind that used to be the only kind. It turned out she didn't know, but after consulting one of her older colleagues, she was able to figure out what regular jeans used to be, and she pointed me in the right direction. The trouble was that with all these options available to me now, I was no longer sure that regular jeans were what I wanted. Perhaps the easy fit or the relaxed fit would be more comfortable. Having already demonstrated how out of touch I was with modern fashion, I persisted. I went back to her and asked what difference there was between regular jeans, relaxed fit, and easy fit. She referred me to a diagram that showed how the different cuts varied and didn't help narrow the choice. So I decided to try them all with a pair of jeans of each type under my arm. I entered the dressing room. I tried on all the pants and scrutinized myself in a mirror. I asked once again for further clarification. Whereas very little was riding on my decision, I was now convinced that one of the options had to be right for me, and I was determined to figure it out, but I couldn't. Finally, I chose the easy fit because relaxed fit implied that I was getting soft in the middle and needed to cover it up. The jeans I chose turned out just fine, but it occurred to me that day that buying a pair of pants should not be a day-long project. By creating all these options, the store undoubtedly had done a favor for customers with varied tastes and body types. However, by vastly expanding the range of choices, they had also created a new problem that needed to be solved. Before these options were available, a buyer like myself had to settle for an imperfect fit, but at least purchasing jeans was a 5-minute affair. Now it was a complex decision in which I was forced to invest time, energy, and no small amount of self doubt, anxiety, and dread. Buying jeans is a trivial matter, but it suggests a much larger theme we will pursue throughout this book, which is this: when people have no choice, life is almost unbearable. As the number of autonomy, control, and liberation this variety brings are powerful and positive, but as the number of choices keeps growing, negative aspects of having a multitude of options begin to appear. As the number of choices grows further, the negatives escalate until we become overloaded. At this point, choice no longer liberates but debilitates. It might even be said to tyrannize. Tyrannize? That's a dramatic claim, especially following an example about buying jeans. But our subject is by no means limited to how we go about selecting consumer goods. This book is about the choices Americans face in almost all areas of life: education, career, friendship, sex, romance, parenting, religious observance. There is no denying that choice improves the quality of our lives. It enables us to control our destinies and to come close to getting exactly what we want out of any situation. Choice is essential to autonomy, which is absolutely fundamental to well being. Healthy people want and need to direct their own lives. On the other hand, the fact that some choice is good doesn't necessarily mean that more choice is better. As I will demonstrate, there is a cost to having an overload of choice. As a culture, we are enamored of freedom, self determination, and variety, and we are reluctant to give up any of our options. But clinging tenaciously to all the choices available to us contributes to bad decisions, to anxiety, stress, and dissatisfaction, even to clinical depression. Many years ago, the distinguished political philosopher Isaiah Berlin made an important distinction between negative liberty and positive liberty. Negative liberty is freedom from constraint, freedom from being told what to do by others. Positive liberty is freedom to the availability of opportunities to be the author of your life and to make it meaningful and significant. Often, these two kinds of liberty will go together. If the constraints people want freedom from are rigid enough, they won't be able to attain freedom to. But these two types of liberty need not always to go together. Nobel Prize winning economist and philosopher Amartya Sen has also examined the nature and importance of freedom and autonomy and the conditions that promote it. In his book, Development as Freedom, he distinguishes the importance of choice in and of itself from the functional role it plays in our lives. He suggests that instead of being fetishistic about freedom of choice, we should ask ourselves whether it nourishes us or deprives us, whether it makes us mobile or hems us in, whether it enhances self respect or diminishes it, and whether it enables us to participate in our communities or prevents us from doing so. Freedom is essential to self respect, public participation, mobility, and nourishment. But not all choice enhances freedom. In particular, increased choice among goods and services may contribute to little or nothing to the kind of freedom that counts. Indeed, it may impair freedom by taking time and energy we'd better off devoting to other matters. I believe that many modern Americans are feeling less and less satisfied even as their freedom of choice expands. This book is intended to explain why this is so and suggest what can be done about it, which is no small matter. The United States was founded on a commitment to individual freedom and autonomy, with freedom of choice as a core value. And yet, it is my contention that we do ourselves no favor when we equate liberty too directly with choice, as if we necessarily increase freedom by increasing the number of options available. Instead, I believe that we make the most of our freedom by learning to make good choices about the things that matter, while at the same time unburdening ourselves from too much concern about the things that don't. Following that thread, Part 1 discusses how the range of choice people face every day has increased in recent years. Part 2 discusses how we choose and shows how difficult and demanding it is to make wise choices. Choosing well is especially difficult for those determined to make only the best choices. Individuals are referred as maximizers. Part 3 is about how and why choice can make us suffer. It asks whether increased opportunities for choice actually makes people happier, and concludes that often they don't. It also identifies several psychological processes that explains why added options do not make people better off. Adaptation, regret, missed opportunities, raised expectations, and feelings of inadequacy in comparison with others. It concludes with the suggestion that increased choice may actually contribute to the recent epidemic of clinical depression affecting much of the Western world. Finally, in part 4, I offer a series of recommendations for taking advantage of what is positive and avoiding what is negative. In our modern freedom of choice, throughout the book, you will learn about a wide range of research findings from psychologists and economists, market researchers, and decision scientists, all related to choice and decision making. There are important lessons to be learned from this research, some of them not so obvious, and others even counterintuitive. For example, I will argue that number one, we'll be better off if we embrace certain voluntary constraints on our freedom of choice instead of rebelling against them. Two, we will be better off seeking what was good enough instead of seeking the best. Have you ever heard a parent say, I want only the good enough for my kids? 3. We will be better off if we lowered our expectations about the results of decisions. 4. We will be better off if the decisions we made were non reversible. 5. We will be better off if we paid less attention to what others around us were doing. These conclusions fly in the face of the conventional wisdom that the more choices people have, the better off they are. That best way to get good results is to have very high standards, and that it's always better to have a way to back out of a decision than not. What I hope to show is that the conventional wisdom is wrong, at least when it comes to what satisfies us in the decision we make. As I mentioned, we'll examine choice overload as it affects number of areas in human experience that are far from trivial. But to build the case for what I mean by overload, we will start at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs and work our way up. We'll begin by doing some more shopping.